Okay, so we're just waiting for a few more people to join us. Today we are doing our webinar on organizational planning, HR organizational planning and business planning essentially for 2021. While we're waiting, perhaps we can hear from the audience in terms of, what industry you're in, whether you're an employer or an employee. Feel free to comment in the chat if you prefer, or you can even unmute yourself if that's something that works best for you. Usually wait till about 5 after to give people some time to get settled and join. So bear with us if you don't mind. We'll wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Yeah, I see we have a few more people joining. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Louisa DeJesus, and we're here today to do HR organizational planning for 2021. I was just mentioning earlier, for those of you on the call, if you'd like to share, what industry you're in, whether they're your employer or employee, so we can help with providing some examples and opportunities that may be more relevant for you today. Feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself and share. So I think we should get started, and then those who will join us can always get caught up. So thank you all again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know this is a busy time of the year in general, and definitely with some limitations with the COVID environment that we're living in. So thank you again for coming and joining us today for our webinar. We are going to be discussing today organizational planning 2021, and what does that mean in terms of your organization and the planning stages that we'll go through. So I do have my colleague today with me, Julie Gallows, and she'll be co-presenting, and we'll just get a couple of minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the agenda and get into introduction. So again, thank you all for joining. Today we will be going through, again, welcome and introductions, introduce myself a little bit more so you know what we do and who I am, and we'll get into some market information and talk about top concerns faced by leaders in today's day with respect to planning for your business moving forward into 2021. Then we'll discuss a little bit more about HR and organizational planning altogether. The planning process, there are quite a number of steps that we'll walk you through and provide some specific examples before we get into some case studies where we've done some planning with some of our clients and what that means and some of the considerations depending on the industry. So we've got a couple examples for you, case studies that will help identify the opportunities for you in your business. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Louisa DeJesus, and I'm the founder and president of LD Human Resources. We support small to medium-sized businesses with all of their HR needs, whether it's strategic or hands-on. In every industry, essentially, we've had an opportunity to work on, whether it's construction, manufacturing, professional services, retail, finance, even the food safety area. It's quite a versatile group that we've had the opportunity to support through the business objectives in supporting their HR needs. And again, as I mentioned, whether it's recruiting or identifying talent gaps, performance management, terminations, organizational effectiveness, really all areas of HR is where we would support. Whether it's a project or ongoing. A lot of our clients do call it like the HR department, because sometimes you don't need HR full time, but you definitely need HR, especially in today's day. Myself, I've been working in HR for over 20 years. I'd say I've had the opportunity to work alongside some amazing professionals in the HR industry, at large corporate environments, but also at the smaller owner-managed level with private organizations, which really takes up about 80% of our economy, who needs that support to drive, the right environment for the everyday person to work in and have a great positive experience at work, which is where we spend most of our time. Alongside me, I have an amazing team. As I mentioned, teamwork here, it says teamwork makes the dream work, and I really am honored and I'm very lucky to have a great team beside me. I have Julie with us, as I mentioned, that she'll be co-presenting and walking us through the organizational planning methodology today. So I'll pass it to her to introduce herself before I share with you the other team members.
Thanks, Louisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. I've been working with LZHR for just over a year now. Similar to Louisa, I have many, many years experience in the HR profession. Most of my professional career has been in HR. I've had the opportunity to work in professional services within the financial service industry, the legal industry, and accounting. Over the years, I've been able to work with small HR departments to larger HR departments, starting off in administrative roles and working through the full gamut of all of the HR functions over the years. And I've had the opportunity to work with larger clients and small to medium clients over the past year and a half. So it's been a great opportunity to apply my knowledge that I've taken over the years of experience working with some of the professional services firms and really cater it to the clients that we have and customizing our HR approach for each of them.
Thanks so much, Julie.
Thanks.
We also have Christina Foggia, and she's on the call as well. Christina's our HR administrator, and she really assists us and supports us with all areas of HR. I think she's almost at 2 years with us, about a year and a half or so, and all of our marketing material, anything to do with our administrative aspect of the business, both for myself, like the business, as well as our clients. Christina really has some magic that she works with the information that she provides and supports us on. And then we have Christina Gallos, which is, yes, Julie's sister. Mm-hmm. And Christina's on the call as well. And Christina's been working with LZHR for over 2 years now. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to work alongside Christina. And she's been in HR for probably quite a number of years, at least over 18 years or 15 years or so, and worked in the professional services industry prior to joining us, but really had the opportunity to work alongside a number of different industries and clients in supporting their HR solutions. Christina has a really methodical, I guess, and calm approach, which is very supportive when we're dealing with HR issues, and our clients really value that. So again, amazing team that I'm so fortunate to have alongside me. Thank you so much. I'm going to get into the next point, and this is something that's very interesting. Now, along the way, we will be going through a number of steps, but in general, we do a number of webinars, probably about one a month, to be able to educate and support our clients and those in the business of HR, I guess, that are interested in understanding HR. So feel free to share and tag us on social media if you'd like. You can do that by tagging at ld.h, human resources, and hashtag LDHR trains. We welcome you to share with your network and on your social channels so that we can spread the knowledge as much as possible. So today, what is it that top 3 market concerns that leaders are facing? Well, these are the 3 major ones. So, with the COVID environment, are we still going to be able to be profitable? This is something that, regardless of planning, has been quite the concerns in general that I think employers have been facing live right now, never mind about planning. So are we going to be able to stay afloat? COVID's really impacted so many businesses, small, large, and how is it that we're going to move forward? What government supports can we take advantage of? And, what does that mean to you and your business? The other one is employee engagement and productivity. Essentially, we are in a blended environment, work from home, home-life balance. It's sort of a big blur altogether. And so how do we engage our staff and ensure that they're still meeting the objectives of the organization, their career objectives, and keeping them excited about work and considering as well that there's that concern, number one, of the profitable business operations, right? And then the third one is talent gaps. Do we have the right resources in place to be able to drive the objectives that we need to and that we've set out to achieve? So real key issues, I guess, or concerns that are faced today for many leaders. And we'll be walking through a couple more stats with each of these. But before I do so, I'd love to hear from you and take a poll. So tell us, which one of those 3 market concerns are you most worried about as an employer, or even as an employee, I should say? Please do type your response in the chat. We'll give it a couple minutes and pull the results to hear a little bit more about what's concerning you. Very key thing. So is it profitable business operations? Are you concerned about your employee engagement and productivity? Or are you concerned more about the gaps in terms of talent for your organization to reach those objectives? So Julie's going to take a quick poll, looking at the chat.
Yeah, so far it looks like employee engagement and productivity seems to be the front runner and the main concern of most of the people on the call today. Give it one more second if anybody has any other thoughts. Yeah, it looks like employee engagement and productivity is the key area that most people are concerned about on the call.
Yeah, and I would say it's very, very real, especially right now with, initially I would say the summer months I had a lot of this concern as well, just given work from home, kids home. Now we're going to the holidays, we're going to have a similar situation for sure. And just in general with so many different aspects to balance in that sense. So let's hear a little bit more about the different concerns. So according to Facebook survey, 31% of small and medium-sized businesses have shut down in the last 3 months. It's a pretty daunting number. 30% of our economy is been shut down. And where are those people, that have been in businesses, different examples or different experiences? Where are they working now? Where can they find work? So it's a very scary reality. So, particularly bad for personal businesses, there's about 52%, and specifically in the hospitality industry, right? Entertainment, so hotels, cafes, restaurants. As we know, Toronto shut down. I honestly think it's just a matter of time for York Region. But we also have those wellness, grooming, fitness, and other professional services, 41%, that also has been impacted. So definitely, maintaining profitable business operations is still a very key concern. So the one that this group was most concerned about was employee engagement. Again, there's some data on Facebook, 10% of owners and managers themselves are having a challenge in terms of taking care of household members as well as their business, balancing their business. So whether it's children, the elderly, other responsibilities with dependent adults, and so on. And so nearly half of those have been feeling burnt out. And we actually just had a post on social media, right? It's a very real concern. In general, this time of the year is when people get burnt out. It's the highest rate of heart attack. It's just so much stress in general. And so it's so important to ensure that we're recognizing those issues and addressing those employee engagement and productivity concerns. So, some of the things I guess we can just share in terms of how do we address them. Well, employee engagement, it's really important to stay connected. It's really important to have constant conversations and ensure that there's those breaks that people are taking and shutting down at 5 o'clock or whatever your business hours are. The thing is, many people don't have much more to do but work sometimes. And so encouraging them to schedule whatever it is, reading a book, watching a show, having time with family, trying a new recipe, just to give them that break, it will go a long way to create a little bit more balance in terms of the work and life aspect. And essentially then they're recharged to be productive and engaged in the workforce. So just some tidbits in terms of opportunities that we can engage our staff and try to be as effective as possible. The third concern is talent gaps. Are we going to have the right people in place when we need them, right? Ontario skills shortages cost the economy up to $24.3 billion in foregone GDP and $3.7 billion in provincial tax revenues annually. So, the reality is that in certain industries, there's quite a shortage. Although we have a number of individuals that are laid off in the workforce, well, perhaps they're laid off, but they're not able to go back to work for the other concerns that we just talked about in terms of balancing home life. And the mere fact of being afraid of COVID. Now there's a vaccine, so hopefully that will be rolled out. That'll provide some more sense of security and well-being and health, managing those health risks for many individuals. But in general, as I mentioned, certain industries have a shortage. So typically we find it in trades, technical trades, such as, in the construction industry. Many individuals are graduating from university and professional services or professional categories that there's just a shortage of those individuals going into the workforce. So how do you get the keen individuals on that team to close those talent gaps? And similar with other sort of key professional roles that you may need. So having some key and important recruitment strategies in place are going to be very important in moving forward to reach those operational objectives. So I'm going to pass it to Julie now to talk a little bit about the actual planning piece and what does organizational planning even mean? How does that relate to me and my business? So I'll pass it to Julie and she can share with you more details on that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Louisa. So what is organizational planning and why is it important to your business? So by definition, organizational planning is a process of defining a company's reason for existing. The process allows an organization to set goals aimed at realizing full potential. And then in turn, it creates a series of tasks that you're able to use to meet the organizational goals. Through the planning process, we're able to identify the resources and needs of an organization, which then allows us to carry out and meet the specific objectives that we need to accomplish. The planning process actually provides us key information to the top management team to help them effectively make decisions on how to allocate the resources in a way that will actually enable an organization to reach its key objectives. Essentially, productivity is maximized and resources are focused on the projects where we're going to have the greatest success in relation to the organizational goals. To give you a bit of context, think about if your business has a strategy to grow this year. You'd likely want to allocate your resources perhaps to the marketing team or beef up some of your social media platforms or even recruit for a business development manager. Your resources are then strategically being allocated to maximize your broader goal of growing your business. So just moving on to organizational planning and really why is it important to the HR process and why is it key to the planning process of HR? So when we talk about allocating the right resources to achieve your goals, human talent is one of those key resources needed to actually achieve organizational success. there's a direct link between strategic organizational planning and human resource planning. Really, neither one can exist without the other. By integrating HR into your planning process, it enables you to ensure that you're identifying the goals and opportunities and your competitive advantages. Then you can go out and recruit, hire, and develop the right workforce to achieve your goals. As we all know, people are our most valuable asset to any organization, and HR planning allows you to quantify results directly through your people. So when we look at the planning process, how do we get these great ideas around strategic planning into motion? Well, first off, you want to follow a roadmap that will likely take you full circle in your planning stages. So here is a five-step planning process that we use with our clients to help them achieve their planning success. So step one, you want to review successes and shortfalls, identify gaps and opportunities, set a plan of action. Number four, customize the plan and evaluate your plans and goals. I'm going to take you through these steps in detail, but I did want to note that not only is this a great process for your yearly planning, it can be applied to any project or any policy review in an organization. It's a great model to follow to keep you on track. So let's go to the first stage in the planning process. So the first step is to review your successes and shortfalls. So you want to think about, what went well, what did you learn along the way, were there some areas that were missed, or maybe there's some improvements that you can make for next time. Think about, did you meet your objectives overall? So if you did, great, celebrate those successes. But if not, how far off the mark were you? And what are some of the reasons why you didn't meet those objectives? Through this process, you want to be sure you're gathering honest feedback and inputs from all levels of the organization. There are a few ways to gather feedback. One way to do that is through employee surveys and focus groups. With this approach, you can send out an anonymous survey asking specific questions, or perhaps engaging smaller focus groups to generate some discussion. Another way is through your year-end performance review results. You want to take a look at the performance of your organization. How are your employees doing? Typically, when you have higher performers, they're more likely contributing to your organizational success. In general, it's always a good practice to have your performance reviews tied to your organizational goals. That way, there will be more success, and everyone is contributing to the common goal of the organization. Another way is by gathering direct feedback from your leadership team. So whether you're doing focus groups or seeking senior leader feedback, you want to be sure you're canvassing from a really good, diverse mix of individuals. You want to make sure that you're gathering gender diversity, you're taking a look at different levels in the organization, from management levels to your frontline staff. This helps get a different perspective. Everyone has a different perspective from an organizational point of view, and by setting your feedback net quite wide, you'll be able to bring that to the table when you're reviewing your year. Also, be prepared to put some of the feedback in action. When you're asking for feedback, you want to make sure that you're in a position to actually do something with the feedback. You want to let the people that you're requesting feedback from know that it is important to them. You want to communicate upfront why you're asking for feedback, what you're going to do with that feedback. And at the end, when you have your findings, you also want to share that with them. Let them know what you can action, and perhaps maybe there are some things that are not actionable based on the feedback you've collected, but letting them know why will definitely go a long way. If you don't let people know, or let your teams know what the feedback is and why you're seeking it, it's almost often seen as a wasted exercise. People are not going to contribute, or they're not going to contribute with honest feedback. They just may see it as another survey that they have to fill out that kind of goes into the online abyss, and they never hear about it again. So you want to make sure you're communicating upfront to gather the most honest feedback in this process. So moving on to the second stage, we want to identify the gaps and opportunities. So you want to take an inventory of gaps and opportunities in your organization. One of the areas you want to identify development opportunities for your resources. So at this stage, this could be a great time to develop a development plan for one of your high-performing employees, for example. You want to consider any client wins and shortfalls that you've had throughout the year. You want to identify if you've had some client wins. What does that mean for your organization? So do you have the right people in place to, to work on that new work that may result from that client win? On the flip side of that, if you've had any shortfalls, do you have the right work to keep your employees engaged, right? Or will you be in a position where you may need to let some individuals go because you've lost some significant work for the upcoming year? You also want to consider what training and resources you will need. Perhaps, like I mentioned, you may have some new work coming your way. So is your current talent that you have ready to execute on some of that new work? Can your current workforce handle it, or do you actually need to train them up to be successful? You also want to identify any gaps in or opportunities in any of the processes. We find that some processes may actually hinder an individual or organization's performance. Often we find that we do the same thing year after year because it's the way it's always been done. While we know improvements could be made to a specific process. So this is a great opportunity to tackle some of those processes in your organization that are not as effective and efficient, and look for opportunities for improvement. You also want to consider your current service offerings. Are your clients in the same position that they were the year before? Have their needs changed? Is there anything that you can do to set yourself apart from your competitors? Given the current year that we've had, I know that a lot of organizations really have had to shift focus in the services that they provide. For example, we've seen a lot of, fitness centers or yoga studios who, their bread and butter would be in-person classes, having people come together to perform, fitness activities at their centers, have really had to make a switch. And so now their needs have changed quite quickly, where they've had to go to an online venue to provide the same service, just in a different manner. So you might want to think about the clients that you do service and whether they've experienced things in their work environment that may impact you as well. Lastly, you want to incorporate any lessons learned along the way. So it's always great to draw from your experiences that were successful, and even opportunities that really had great potential but didn't necessarily go according to plan. So moving on to the third stage in our process, at this stage, you want to start setting your plan of action. So the first thing you want to do is think about who to get involved in your plan. You want to ensure you have the right resources in place, but also involving a diverse group of individuals to help execute on the plan. As I mentioned before, it's the best when you have a diverse group of individuals helping you execute the plan, because everybody brings a different perspective, and you want to get the buy-in from the individuals that you're working with, and you want to hear what they have to say. It's really great to get new ideas, and so by having a diverse group to help you sell your plan will definitely go a long way. You also want to set some goals and targets and objectives. This will help you quantify and measure your success. It's really important to tie in your daily operations to your business. For example, organizational goals and objectives should be, tied into your performance reviews. So there's transparency on how individuals can contribute to the success of an organization. Also, organize timelines and resources to keep you on track. This is really key because it holds all the stakeholders accountable. It helps everybody stay on track to what's involved in the plan, and it keeps the plan moving forward. You also will want to identify any stakeholders and costs that may be associated with your new plan of action. You may need to engage some external resources, or perhaps leverage a certain group or department to support the plan. There may be new costs involved that they might be able to be passed on directly to your market, or maybe you can be covering those costs through increases in revenue. One example that comes to mind from an HR perspective is if you are implementing a new HRIS software, you definitely need to engage with external vendors to explore the best software options. And we all know, if you've gone through any software implementation, there's always a hefty price tag that comes along with that. So finding the best options available to you to sort of absorb those costs within your business. And the last 2 points I see kind of going hand in hand. So communication and collaboration can essentially make or break the success of your plan. It's really important to clearly communicate your plan of action, collaborate with others for feedback, and clearly communicate the expectations. People are more likely to get on board with a plan when they feel that they've contributed and have been able to have their thoughts heard. They're more likely to contribute and make that plan successful. So moving on to the fourth step in the process is to customize the plan to your organization. You need to tie in your plan to the organization's strategy for the year. So think about what the overarching goal is for your business, and you can customize your HR plans specific to tie into the organization. We often find that your plans will fall short when various departments are operating in silos, or whether individuals have their own agendas that they're contributing towards and not necessarily contributing to the bigger picture of the organization. When you're doing your customizing of your plan, you also want to think about any expected growth or downturn that you may have experienced so far that'll continue into the new year, or perhaps some downturn that might continue in the new year that you're already experiencing. I know with this past year, organizations have had mixed experience, especially with COVID. Some organizations have actually experienced a slowdown in business, or have had to close their doors, while other organizations have capitalized on COVID and their businesses have bloomed and actually become very profitable over the course of the year. So you want to continue with that trajectory and think about how it's going to impact your year to come. You also want to think about other factors that may have impacted your business. I know COVID's on the mind of everyone, and this is one of the things that I think will dictate a lot of our planning for 2021. And it's really hard to think about other impacts that may result or directly impact your business. I know we all wish we had a crystal ball to predict what's coming with our businesses, but it's still good to go through the exercise to think about potentials that could either enhance your business opportunities or perhaps impact it negatively. If anything, I think COVID this year has really taught many organizations to have plan Bs in place, to be resilient and very adaptable to change. Even though most organizations were not ready for it, it really showed and demonstrated that organizations could be really adaptable and make those changes. And not only organizations as wholes, but people were really ready and willing to make the changes necessary to kind of, I would say, go with the flow, because we've had so many things that have been very unpredictable this year, and people have been amazing in trying to make things work for their organizations. You also want to consider your workforce planning. So do you have the right people in the right roles to achieve your goals? This is something you really need to think about. Is there opportunities internally to be able to promote or develop your current workforce, or do you need to go out and acquire new talent? The best thing is to really promote within when you can, and provide those stretch opportunities for those in your workforce currently. But from time to time, you may not have the right resources in place, and that will give you an opportunity to go to market and find some new talent. The last thing you want to consider when you're customizing your plan is taking a look at your industry. So is there anything specific in your industry that has changed? If so, how will that impact your business going forward? And how will you pivot to develop innovative solutions to adjust to some of those industry trends or industry changes that have happened? One example that I can think about from an HR perspective is when we think about our onboarding process, when we have a new hire start with us on their first day and on their first week, and what that looks like. So that experience has drastically changed for many organizations when they're onboarding someone new. With many organizations working remotely now and not working in the office, you've kind of lost that opportunity to you get to know your colleagues, to take them for lunch, for them to go around the office and physically meet people that they're working with, and getting introduced to people on their team. So lots of organizations have really had to pivot and think of creative ways to give their new employees that same onboarding experience that they would have done from an office point of view. One example that I've heard from a client, which I thought was really great, was regarding the first aid team lunch. So obviously, with people working remotely, it's really hard to take your new team member out and get to know them and have a team lunch out of the office with that individual. So one organization actually set up a virtual team lunch, which I thought was a really great idea, where they were able to set up a time over the lunch hour where everybody brought their own lunch, and they all zoomed in and they all sat together as a team remotely, and they ate their lunch together. And they provided a little special surprise for the new individual on board. They gave them the option to kind of do an Uber Eats and bring in their own lunch for that day. So I thought that was an innovative way to change with some of the industry trends that we're seeing. So moving on to the final stage of the planning is to evaluate your plan and your goals. So you want to look at the ongoing review of your plan and goals for the year. It's really important to review this throughout the year and just not make it an exercise that you complete in January and then you dust off again in December. You really want to make sure that you're reviewing it on an ongoing basis so that you can track your progress. You want to make sure that you're keeping in line with your timelines that you set early in the year. You want to set in checkpoints throughout the year to make sure you're really keeping on track of your goals. You also want to reevaluate. And I see this as one of the key things when you have any plan is you want to take a look at the goals and objectives you've set and reevaluate as you move throughout the year. As we've seen with COVID, events can happen in your organization that can really impact the course of action that you had planned. And so this is really important to identify those things and consider it not to be a negative, but an opportunity to shift gears, so to speak. Perhaps you had a team of individuals that were going to be working on a specific project. Perhaps the individual leading that project resigned from the organization, and so now your team may be on a standstill. So that project may not be able to come to completion, and that's okay. It's a really great opportunity to just now take a look at that project and how you can reevaluate it and make it successful. Is it something that's going to continue through the course of the year, or is it something you'll put on hold next year when you have the proper resources in place? And then the last thing you want to do is schedule check-ins. You want to make sure that you have check-ins scheduled throughout the year. A tip that I find useful is scheduling those in people's calendars in advance. So that way you've already planned for it. You have them booked in someone's calendar if you want to do check-ins if it's related to a project or individual one-on-one check-ins. That way it holds you more accountable. And if you need to reschedule, you can do so, but you've already got the time committed in your calendar. And it's a visual and a reminder for everybody involved. One example of check-ins and making sure that you've kind of stayed on track with your plans is performance reviews. When I think about performance reviews, if they're done properly, at the end of the year, there really should be no surprises. People should know how they're tracking throughout the year. So if you set your goals at the beginning of the year, schedule quarterly check-ins or monthly check-ins, whatever works best for yourself and the employee. It's really good to set those up in advance, have scheduled times, and track their progress throughout the year. See how they're contributing towards the goals they've set. Talk about any shortfalls that they may be experiencing. Is there opportunities where you perhaps as a manager could go and help them? So by having these routine check-ins throughout the year, by the time you go to the year end to do their full performance review, there really shouldn't be any surprises. Your employees should know where they stand from a performance perspective. So that takes us through the 5 stages. I'm going to turn it back over to Louisa now to take us through as a planning case study.
Thanks so much, Julie. Really appreciate it. So I think that it was very thorough to understand the 5 steps, right? Reviewing your successes and shortfalls, identifying gaps, opportunities, setting that plan, customizing it, and really evaluating the progress. And so I wanted to give you a couple examples of some case studies or a couple clients that we've had that have really had to pivot their business. And whether it's a positive or I would say a more challenging situation. I wanted to give you an example of both in terms of the COVID-19 impacts that we've been working with a number of our clients through. So we have a client that they're in the hospitality industry, and as you know, especially from the stats that we shared earlier, that's like 43%. They've been the hardest hit. Restaurants are closed, personal services are closed. So, people are not getting married at banquet halls anymore. And we find that restaurants, even with having, York region, I should say, they can have 10 people. Well, it's very hard to be able to maintain business operations. So our one client, they were in the banquet/fine dining industry. And so it wasn't like they normally did takeout. And initially they thought, okay, we'll just kind of wait it out. And then recognize that this is not something that's going away, or we're going to be resuming sort of normal business activity. And so they really had to adapt. They had to adjust with, staffing pretty quickly to try and maintain their operation and keep it afloat. They also had to do damage control with clients, right? People are emotional. They really were looking forward to that event that they had planned, especially if it was something so personal, which usually they are when it comes to the events that they were hosting. And so, after some time passed and we looked at different opportunities, they were really able to pivot in the sense of now providing takeout. Now with the holiday season, putting some gift packages together. And so they set up a plan in order to pivot accordingly and customize it specifically. Now we're ongoing review of this plan. Is this going to be able to maintain? Does it still make sense to provide because they are in York region? Does it still make sense for us to have inside dining available? And what do we need to add and customize in terms of perhaps having a heated tent, or adding certain heaters that are going to sustain the winter months in order for them to continue to be in operation. So it's a little bit more of a challenging pivot, I would say, how COVID has impacted, but still very positive in the sense of keeping that going. And then on the flip side, right, what can they do and who can they engage from the government to support and really advocate? And so getting on some really advisory committees and boards to be able to come together even with their competitors to keep their industry alive. So really shifting that as much as they can with their own example and impact. And then the other example I wanted to tell you was another client that we work with in the professional services industry. And this is an organization that, had an already incredible culture and very engaged workforce, although they really were only operating from the office, very collaborative, weren't really sort of for the work from home environment in general. They're working on improving technology, but not quite there yet. And then COVID hit. Well, it sort of forced the operation to move home. We weren't allowed to go to the office. They were considered an essential service. However, the individuals that they had working for them, and even the leadership, they also felt that it would be their social responsibility to do the best they could to continue having people, or to get people working from home from a safety perspective. And so they quickly adapted, right? Let's be clear and sort of reevaluate our work from home policy and ensure that we are clear and we're providing as much guidance in terms of the expectations of getting feedback from staff as well. So having surveys ongoing through the COVID, cycles, I should say, whether it's in the beginning of COVID in the, right in the summertime, and then currently in our current environment. And I mean, why pivoting? They didn't have laptops. As I told you, they're working on, a few people had laptops, but they really were working on desktops. And so that's like they were assisting in getting people set up, making sure, of course, that they're maintaining COVID protocols, but like physically bringing desktops and chairs and getting people set up, and then quickly adapting to recognize what gaps are there moving forward. How are we going to mitigate these risks as it's continuing in a COVID environment? And I would say that their opportunity was, or what they were able to really capitalize on was they were already a very engaged workforce and had excellent communication. So really leading their group with transparency, having regular calls to keep everyone engaged on a weekly basis from a team perspective, scheduling check-ins, adapting, as Julie had said, with respect to, onboarding. This one is a little bit different, but still, right, you usually have so many multiple checkpoints with a new hire, where they're meeting with you all the time, just from a training perspective. And so it's a different environment. So they schedule different individuals to mix it up and provide the opportunity to have different connections in the organization. So say that there was a manager that always went through that. Well, they maybe had the manager and a peer and another supervisor / team lead that had connections throughout the day. So at least it gave that versatility, and they could build relationships with more than just the one individual in the organization. And really evaluating and as they continue. So, working on planning as an organization right now, they've identified, okay, we also need to up and change our technology, perhaps get laptops or, get cameras for those who don't have the camera with their desktop that is at home. The other thing is this individual business typically got a lot of leads and connections through conferences and networking sessions, and that has really gone away with COVID. There are certain ones that are online, but how do they ensure that people understand who they are, what they do, their brand? So really looked at the marketing initiative and started to get some additional resources and expertise to get an online presence. Because I think we see a lot of businesses recognizing, even from a retail experience, you're seeing a lot of individual, small mom and pop shops now selling and having a website and selling their items online, and adapting with curbside pickup and Uber delivery, whatever it is. And it's really an opportunity to really stay afloat. And I'll be honest, this is something that I even pivoted myself right in the beginning of the year when we talk about reviewing sort of and evaluating my plan. I had set out to achieve this year. My focus is going to be, really getting out there, developing different relationships, getting involved in different business development opportunities, and really pushing sort of sales, if you will, so that people know what value we can bring to the organization in their HR, and how it relates, how your people are your most valuable asset to really drive that business. And I would say that in the beginning of COVID, I thought, I can't call people and tell them to get my support when they're trying to keep their business afloat. I felt it was distasteful. So we've quickly pivoted and decided to take a more of an educational approach, right? Let's provide as many resources as we can once a month, doing webinars, really kind of connecting with clients with blogs. And obviously, if we have clients that are interested in supporting, getting support in the HR, I'm all for it. We're here to support. But I just felt like I needed to take a different approach in how we're marketing our business, just given the current environment and what so many business owners are dealing with. So just some examples of real case studies and limitations, opportunities that we can still move forward and drive those objectives for 2021 within mind. And again, the planning phases, right? Review what's worked, what hasn't worked. What opportunities can we take to really reach those objectives that we have? What are the gaps and how do we get there? And really understanding, okay, who's involved in the plan? What are the timelines? What are the milestones? Having those check-ins and customizing it specifically to whether it's your industry, whether it's the season, and also as we go into the holiday season, right? Typically, some businesses are very, very busy at this time, but I think for the most part, you know, when I talk about people on vacation, not too many people have taken vacation this year because they're either so busy or they really don't have anywhere to go. So I think that, you know, ensuring that you're doing that rest and recharge to go into 2021 is important. And again, you know, talking about customizing those plans, you know, booking in that time that you're going to have those breaks, right? And then evaluating the progress, evaluating, does it still make sense, or do we need to pivot and change? So just a little bit of recap for us today in terms of the planning, and, you know, really ensuring that your people are most involved, because that's the ones that they're going to drive those results and really set you apart from your competition. So opening it out to any questions that anyone might have. We're just about coming up on time, and wanted to make sure that we give the opportunity for any questions that anyone has. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or put your questions in the chat. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We do have some contact information here. Please feel free to stay connected. There was a question in the chat, not sure if everyone saw, asking if the presentation will be emailed to you after. We actually have a great forum of a YouTube channel where we host all of our webinars, so feel free to peruse there. We've got different ones that we've conducted on mental health, onboarding, recruitment. So this will be added, and you will be sent a link within the week so that you can access it and share with those who you think may find it valuable. And of course, feel free to welcome to reach out to us anytime. Thank you again all for your attention. Thank you so much, Julie, for your insights today and sharing that education, and wishing you all a wonderful rest of the day and weekend, also a very happy holiday season. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.